All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Electric Cars Coming Soon. We're so glad you could join us tonight. Just some little housekeeping before we kick things off. As you'll see when you enter, this webinar is being recorded, so we will send along the recording after the fact, along with the slide deck for you to peruse at your leisure. We really encourage any questions to be put in the question box, and we will answer them as best we can throughout the presentation and also at the end. And when we follow up with the email with the recording and the slides, feel free to ask any unanswered questions back via email as well. But we'll get started from here. So a little bit about us, who you're seeing on your screen today. So my name is Devin DeLibero, and I am the Electric Vehicle Program Coordinator at Green Energy Consumers Alliance. I work on a program called Drive Green, which specializes in electric vehicle education. And along with myself, I also have my coworker who will introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Ezra Messenger, and I'm the Drive Green Program Associate, and I'll also be covering some of the vehicles today.
Um, So we'll be taking turns. So you'll hear from both of us. And it should be a fun webinar. Next slide, please. But before we get into the meat of this presentation, just want to let everyone know about us who hasn't heard about us before. So we are Green Energy Consumers Alliance. We are a nonprofit that operates in both Massachusetts and Rhode Island with the mission to empower consumers and communities to speed a transition to a zero carbon world. We do this with a lot of our policy and advocacy work, but also with programmatic work like the Drive Green program. So definitely check out the Drive Green program after this presentation if you haven't heard of us already. So just to preface some of the different cars we have coming soon and the information that we're going to have on each slide, I wanted to go over a few things. So the first thing we'll talk about today is MSRP, which stands for Manufacturer Suggested Retail Price. So we're going to tell you in each slide what the MSRP is for that car, and we might even give you a range because there are different trim levels for each car. So if we have that range, we'll give it to you. And if you don't know what a trim level is, basically every car has like different, let's call them like options. And that's basically a trim level. So a car can come with extras within the same car, just a different trim level. The next thing we're going to talk about, and I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into in just a second, is the Clean Vehicle Tax Credit, which is a federal tax credit. It is very complicated because there's lots of different rules, and we'll have links for you to look into it a little bit more. But know that each car is going to have a check mark on the top of it if it is eligible for the federal tax credit, the Clean Vehicle Tax Credit. So if you do not see a check mark on the top of the slide, it is not eligible currently for the Clean Vehicle Tax Credit. The next thing we're also going to note is plug type. Plug type is important when you're thinking about charging, and we'll talk about that also in a second. And we're going to note which car has which plug type by an image at the top right hand corner of the slide, and I will actually verbally say it out loud so you know which plug it is. Then we'll be talking about the electric range of the vehicle, and I want you to know that different trim levels have different ranges associated with them. So just keep that in mind when you're like on your car search. And then we'll also be talking about drivetrain, which is pretty self-explanatory. So if it's a front-wheel drive car, an all-wheel drive car, or what have you. And then we'll be delving a little bit into charging. So I'll tell you like charging speeds if we know them and things like that, because when you're thinking about electric cars, there are different things you think about when you're thinking about gas-powered cars. So here are the things that we think are important. So to kick off the pre-information, we're going to talk about the clean vehicle credit. So this is for new cars. We're going to talk about this is a tax credit that is up to $7,500 on eligible vehicles, but if in order to get it, it has to meet certain battery requirements, certain assembly requirements, and also you as a consumer have to meet certain income requirements. This program is valid until 2032, and it is available for battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrid vehicles, and fuel cell vehicles. In order to qualify for the federal tax credit, you need to make sure that the dealership you're purchasing from is an IRS registered dealership. And you might say to yourself, what does that mean? Where is this list where I can find an IRS registered dealership? Unfortunately, there is not an IRS registered dealership list. You have to call each individual dealership that you're interested in buying a car from and ask. And then we have different models that are available for the tax credit linked here as well. And if you want to know more about the federal tax credit, and I promise you do if you're interested in a new car, I encourage you to click the link there that we have at the very bottom of this slide, and also learn about your state incentives if you are a Massachusetts or Rhode Island resident. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about charging. So there are 3 levels of charging: level 1, level 2, and DC fast charging, which is also known as level 3. Level 1 and level 2 generally use this plug port that you see here on the left. That for a level 1, it's a 110 volt outlet with 2 to 6 miles of range per hour. So that's not a lot of range. And a 110 volt outlet is like your typical wall outlet in your house. So you don't need anything installed extra to do it, but you will just have a slower rate of charge, which can be totally fine for a lot of people. Level 2 is a 220 volt outlet. You can either have something installed at your home, or you can find this on the go at a public charging station, and that can give you anywhere from 11 to 54 miles of range per hour. It really just depends on the rating, the kilowatt rating of the charging unit that you're using. And if you want to get this installed at your home, you can. It is up to you. Now, when we go to DC fast charging, things change up a little bit. There are separate ports because it is a higher weight, like a higher kilowatt way to charge, a higher volt way to charge. So there are 2 ports that are generally associated with this. There's a J1772 combo, which is also known as CCS. It's the port you see there. And then there's also the CHAdeMO port. Now, if I were you, I would stay away from a car with the CHAdeMO port because there's not very many of them out there, which means there's not going to be a ton of infrastructure readily available for those ports. There's only maybe like 2 cars I can think of, the Nissan Leaf and the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid that use that. Otherwise, most vehicles use the J1772 combo port. Now, another thing you want to know about DC fast charging is it can really vary in like how much you can get in a certain amount of time, like how much range. So we have this example of 90 miles in 30 minutes, but it can, again, vary. So it varies on the capacity of your car to accept charge at a certain rate, and also varies on the output of the charging station that you are using. So if you're at a very fast charging station, so like a 350 kilowatt station, your car could potentially charge really fast if it's capable of accepting power at a rate of 350 kilowatts. If it is not, if it's something that it's lower, it'll charge at whatever rate the car is able to charge the fastest at. So just keep that in mind. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that on each slide, just briefly mention things and like, the actual capability of these cars at their maximum to fast charge. Next slide. Okay. So throwing a wrench in this a little bit is the North American Charging Standard, which was previously known as like the Tesla charging port. We're also going to refer to this as a NACS port. The NACS port is used for all 3 levels of charging, so it is really handy to have. And if you are a Tesla owner or soon to be non-Tesla owners that we'll mention in just a sec, you have access to this crazy supercharger network that Tesla has installed across the country and other parts of North America. So just keep in mind, um, that's what that port looks like. And I will call it out as we go. But that is going to be really important as we go through the conversation because next slide, Ezra. Um, there are very many manufacturers who have now decided to partner with Tesla in order to allow their customers to use the Tesla fast charging network or the NACS charging, NACS charging. So just to name a few, Ford, Rivian, GM, Acura, Fisker, Mercedes-Benz, Nissan, Honda, Jaguar, Polestar, Volvo, and BMW have all partnered with Tesla to use the Tesla charging network. The list is a lot longer. We just can't fit them all on one slide. So just to give you an example of what that looks like. Excuse me. Generally speaking, what this means is that for all the manufacturers who have partnered with Tesla on this venture, they will allow the non-Tesla owners to start using the Tesla charging stations this spring. And I believe Ford is already able to use them. But they'll allow them to do that with an adapter. Now, this adapter may be given to the different customers free of charge, or you might have to buy it. I think it depends on the manufacturer that you bought the car from and what they want to do. And then generally speaking, also in 2025, any partnered manufacturer will their 2025 model year cars will come standard with the NACS charging port, which means they'll go away with the J1772 and just have that NACS charging port. So really the goal is to have Tesla's charging port be the North American charging standard, just like its name. So we just think it's really important to have this background information when considering buying a new car because that could affect your buying decision. And so now we will start with new and coming soon. We have divided these vehicles up into three categories, so sedans, SUVs, trucks, and more. Before I hand this off to Ezra, I want to preface this by saying this is by no means a comprehensive list. It is a long list, but it's not every vehicle you have ever heard of. These are just a lot of the cars that we have an eye on, and we think that our audience might be interested in as well. Um, so, if there is a car you're interested in the future, please do let us know, and we'll try to include it in the next iteration of this presentation. But for now, I'm going to pass it off to Ezra.
All right, so we're going to start first with sedans and crossovers. I do see someone has their hand raised. If you could just put all of your questions in the Q&A section, we'll be able to type up an answer. All right, so first we're going to do an honorable mention. So this is the Chevy Bolt EUV. It currently does exist, but it's an honorable mention because it's been incredibly popular. And while it was just discontinued a few weeks ago, Chevy will be coming out with a new model in 2024 based on the new Ultium platform. So we're very excited for that. The current MSRP range is 27,800 to 36,995, and this car has a 247-mile electric range, and the drivetrain is front-wheel drive. As Devin mentioned, if the car has a check mark, it is eligible for the federal tax incentive. So you can see this car does. It's actually the only car in this presentation that does have eligibility. That's because these other cars are not actually built yet. So once they go into production, they could potentially be added. But as of right now, there are no other vehicles within this presentation of EVs coming soon that are eligible. This also has the NAC symbol in the right corner, and that is because GM, including Chevy, has partnered with Tesla. So new vehicles coming out this year will receive an adapter, and starting next year will come standard with the NACS port. Previously, this car had the J1772. The current charging speeds for the Chevy Bolt EUV for level 2 are about 26 miles an hour at 7.2 kilowatts. So that's the kind of charging you would get at home if you have an EVSE installed at your house. And that's a pretty good amount. Overnight charging, you'll definitely reach full range. If you do DC fast charging, so while on the go, or on a road trip, you can get about 100 miles in 30 minutes at 54 kilowatts. So that is a pretty fast charging speed. That's about a half, a little less than a half of the entire range. And as I said, this car was discontinued, but a new version is coming out. So we're definitely keeping an eye on that, and we are very excited. This is another honorable mention. It's the Hyundai Kona. So while it is not a new car per se, a new body style was just refreshed. So it looks completely different. We're really excited because it's also a little bit larger, and I do find the styling more attractive than the previous edition. The MSRP for this is 32,675 up to 41,045 for the most expensive model, but this is one of the most affordable models that we have in the presentation and one of the most affordable EVs that you can currently buy on the market. This range is a little bit better at 261 miles, and it has both four-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, and an all-wheel drive option. The charging speeds on this are for level 2, 36 miles an hour at 11 kilowatts, and the DC fast charging can reach 80% in 75 minutes, or potentially 47 minutes if you have a faster charger. And like I said, this is currently available and will eventually switch to NACS. It also, like the Chevy Bolt has a J1772 port, but adapters will be available for Hyundai sometime later this year. And eventually in 2025, these cars will come standard with an NACS port. And this is an honorable mention for a plug-in hybrid. The Toyota Prius Prime was remodeled last year. I also think this new edition is far more attractive than the previous model. This comes with the J177 port. While Toyota has switched and it partnered with NACS, their plug-in hybrids, at least for now, will remain J177 port vehicles. If that does change, we'll update this. So this has a current all-electric range of 39 to 44 miles. So it's very attractive. And you can go probably your entire commute on this without having to use gas. Just ignore the hybrid range. It was supposed to be gas range, but a little error right there. This has a front wheel drive and it does charge to full capacity in 4 hours. And this is currently on dealer lot. So if you're interested in a plug-in hybrid, this is a great option. Uh, and if you haven't noticed, all of these cars start at the cheapest and will continue to go up in price. So this Mini Aceman is a future car. It is not available yet, but this has an MSRP of 33,000, and Mini under BMW has partnered with NACS. So this will have the NACS port when it comes out. This car is estimated to have an electric range of 200 miles and will offer both front wheel and all-wheel drive. The charging speeds are currently unknown, but it does have a battery size of between 40 and 54 kilowatt hours. This is just estimated because official numbers have not been released, but it is planned to have the official debut in April of this year with sales starting next year in 2025. This is another small car, the Fiat 500. So Fiat is under Stellantis, which has not agreed to partner with NACS, at least not yet. So this car, when it comes out, will have a J1772 port, not a Tesla port. So just know that when you're shopping. It's going to have an MSRP of 34,095 with a pretty not the best range at 149 miles, but this could be a great car if you live in the city. It's going to have front wheel drive drivetrain, and the charging will go pretty quickly. For level 2, you can get 0 to 100% in 4 hours. And with DC fast charging, you can get 31 miles in an estimated 5 minutes. This is according to Fiat. So these are really great numbers. They have opened the pre-order now, but this car won't go on sale until the end of this year. And this is the Volkswagen ID.7. Volkswagen is keeping all of their electric cars with the ID name, so that's how you can tell it's electric. Volkswagen has partnered with NACS, so this will have a NACS port when it becomes available. And the MSRP is estimated between 50,000 and 61,000. So it's supposed to be like a pretty luxurious car, but with a slightly lower price range. The electric range is estimated between 300 and 386 miles, so it offers a pretty good range, and it has both a rear-wheel drive and an all-wheel drive option. It's if you know what the ID4 looks like, that's Volkswagen's current SUV that's electric. This is supposed to be a more aerodynamic version. So if you remember or know what that looks like, this car is definitely a bit sleeker. It comes with pretty standard charging. So for level 2, you can get full charge in about 12 hours at 7 kilowatts. And you can go from 10% to 80% in 30 minutes under a DC fast charger. This car plans to go on sale the second half of 2024, but so far, no date has been confirmed and there is no pre-order option just yet. So this car is pretty fun because we don't see a lot of coupes currently on the market. I can't think of any that are actually for sale, but the Dodge Charger EV could potentially be a great option. Dodge is just like Fiat under Stellantis, and they have not partnered. So when this car is available, it will have a J1772 combo port. It has an MSRP range of roughly 50,000 to 90,000. And Dodge is claiming in press releases that this car will have an electric range up to 500 miles. So that's very impressive if they do achieve that. It will have an all-wheel drive drivetrain with 455 horsepower. So the car is supposed to go very, very fast. It's also going to have a pretty large battery at 101 to 118 kilowatt hours. The charging speed is currently unknown. And as of right now, there is a release date at the end of 2024, but Dodge has not put this car on their website yet. So that might be a bit optimistic, but we'll see. This car I included as an honorable mention because I'm a very big BMW fanboy. This is the BMW i5, which I have test driven and I really impressed by. It was also ranked as the best car, the best EV by Edmunds for 2023. So if you're in the market, this could be a great option. BMW has partnered with NACS. If you buy the car now, it will have a J1772 port, but eventually they will provide an adapter. And starting next year, this car will come with a standard NACS port. The MSRP is a little higher at 66,800 and could go all the way up to 84,100 for the highest trim level. The electric range is between 240 and 295 miles, and it comes standard with an all-wheel drive drivetrain. The charging on this goes from 0 to 100 in 10 hours, and the DC fast charging can achieve 10 to 80% in 30 minutes. So it's pretty fast. And like I said, this car is available now. Here's another luxury car if you prefer Audi, the Audi A6 e-tron, and Audi has also partnered with Tesla. So this car will come with a NACS port. It's pretty expensive with an estimated 80,000 to 100,000 MSRP, but it will have a decent range at 300 miles and will come with either all-wheel drive or a rear-wheel drive option. And the charging can achieve, according to Audi, they haven't released level 2 charging speeds yet, but for DC fast charging, in 10 minutes, you can get 186 miles. So that is incredible if they do achieve that. And you can go from 5% to 80% in under 25 minutes. This is expected sometime in 2024. A date has not currently been published, and there is no pre-order yet. But definitely keep an eye out on this car. This is the Polestar 5. So right now, Polestar only has one car available, but they're looking to really expand their options. The Polestar 5 will be like their luxury sedan option. It does have a very high MSRP at 100,000, and Polestar has partnered with NACS. So when this car goes on sale, there will be a NACS port. It's going to have an estimated electric range of 300 miles and come with all-wheel drive standard. It has a very large battery at 103 kilowatt hours. And the DC fast charging, they claim will gain 100 miles of range in 5 minutes and will go from 10% to 80% in 10 minutes. So this car could be a great option for people who do a lot of long distance traveling. And Polestar has said this car will be available at the end of this year. So this is the Hyundai Ioniq 6N. The Ioniq 6 already exists, it's for sale, but the N will be the Sport Edition. This car is going to go very, very fast. The current MSRP, though, is unknown, but we do expect it to cost more than the Ioniq 6, which is priced at 42,450. I expect it to be priced much higher than that amount. Hyundai has partnered with NACS, so this car, when it's available, should come with the NACS port standard. Hyundai is in the process of eventually giving adapters or selling or providing adapters to their current owners. The electric range is not known, but we do know it will come with all-wheel drive and 585 horsepower. It's very impressive and should go very fast. Charging information is also currently unknown. Hyundai is really just stressing that this car will be fast, and that's all the information they've released on that. It also won't be available until 2025. They claim early 2025, but again, there's been no official date. And in that same vein, there's the Hyundai Ioniq 5N, which again is the sport version of the Ioniq 5. Price also unknown. We expect it to be more than the Ioniq 5, which is also in the 40,000 range. This car I expect to be much more expensive than that. Hyundai has released this car will receive 278-mile range. So that's pretty good for how fast this car can go with all-wheel drive and uh, very staggering 641 horsepower. I don't know what the 0 to 60 will be, but I expect it to be in the 3 seconds or less range. They also released the charging info, so 10 to 80% in 18 minutes. And this car has a very similar release date sometime in early 2025. So we're now going to move on to SUVs.
Okay. So I was actually just going to answer this by chatting it, but I will answer this out loud. So Jeanette asked, can you please say a little bit more about how to find a dealership that is IRS certified? Are there just a few of them out there, or are most certified? So that is a fantastic question. We're still figuring that out because this is something that just came to fruition as of the first of the year. We have a IRS liaison that we're working with to try to iron out some of the kinks in the rollout of this program, but basically, um, there is no list of IRS certified dealerships. We are doing some of our own research right now to see what dealerships are registered locally with the IRS. So the best course of action if you're looking into this is to call any dealerships that you're interested in working with to see if they are IRS registered. And um, unfortunately, we just have to take their word for it. So I would honestly speak to a manager about it and not a salesperson when you're asking, because I think the managers will know more. And then Ezra I'm going to ask you to send all the steps, the slide with all the steps. In like the follow-up email. So if you go to an IRS dealership, there are steps that you need to make sure that the dealer takes and that you take in order to make sure that you get the federal tax credit, which again, if I didn't say this earlier, you can either get it at point of sale, which means it wouldn't be based on your personal tax liability because it's now going to be pushed off to the dealer or whatever the loan company is. Or you can file when you get your taxes. But there are definitely steps that you need to take. So this will help you to make sure that this dealership is an IRS registered dealership. It is a very clunky process. I'm sorry. We're figuring it out too. And we will, again, to William's question, we will send this presentation out after the fact in an email. I'm going to let Ezra answer the rest of those questions in the chat for now, and I'm gonna move on to SUVs. So actually, Ezra, I don't know how many questions you're gonna be able to get to because you're gonna be my slide clicker. Okay. So the first one we're going to talk about is the Fisker Pair. So Fisker is a EV company. This is a NACS port that it's going to have. So the Fisker Pair has an MSRP of $29,000, basically $30,000. And it has an electric range of 320 miles. It is offered in either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. And for charging, we do know that for DC fast charging, it'll get 10 to 80% in 30 minutes. Um, you can pre-order those cars now. Um, I'm not sure of the lead time, but you are able to pre-order. Next slide, please. Okay. Um, the Chevy Equinox EV. This is something I'm really excited to see if this comes out when it says it's supposed to come out. Chevy has had some issues in the last year or so with production, so I would take their release dates with a grain of salt. And some of like right now, even the Blazer has stopped sale on it because of software issues, so they have been having some issues. But when this does come out, you will be able to use, if it comes out this year with a 2024 model year, you will be able to use an adapter to use the Tesla charging network. It is estimated to have an MSRP of $30,000. And what I want to stress is like, this is just the base MSRP. This could vary greatly depending upon the trim level and also depending upon if there's any dealer markups. From what we know, there is an electric range of up to 319 miles, which is honestly really great for an electric vehicle. It also has for a drivetrain, front wheel drive and all-wheel drive. And as far as charging goes, you can get 34 miles per hour for level 2 using an 11.5 kilowatt charger. And for DC fast charging, you can get 70 miles in 10 minutes using a 150 kilowatt charger. So that's pretty good. As far as a release date goes, they say early to mid 2024. I would put that as mid to later 2024 in my cynical opinion. That's what I would guess. Ezra, this is your favorite car. Would you like to just talk about it?
Sure, I'll talk about it. So I'm also a big Volvo fan. And this EX30 is a really great entry-level Volvo. Not only is it really affordable with an MSRP of $36,245, it's also really, really sustainable, according to Volvo at least. There's been no third-party like fact checking, but Volvo claims that this car will have the lowest life cycle carbon emissions of any vehicle ever created, partly because all of the materials in the car are recycled, and also all of the factories where these cars are manufactured are powered by solar panel and renewable energy. Volvo has partnered with NACS, so this will offer the NACS when it's available. It has a range of up to 275 miles and will offer both a rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive drivetrain. The all-wheel drive will have dual motors, and that version will actually be the fastest Volvo ever made. It's as fast as a Lamborghini Urus, so we're talking like 3.6 seconds, 0 to 60. The charging is pretty typical for level 2. It's 8 hours fully charged, and the DC fast charging 10 to 80% in 27 minutes. This car is also available right now for pre-order. There's some dealerships that even have some demo models, and they've been given out to different reviewers. So the car does exist, and it's on the road in some places, and they plan to have delivery start this summer, 2024. So
I think we can expect Ezra to have test driven the demos pretty soon. Next slide, please. Thank you, Ezra. The next one we'll talk about is the Fisker Ocean. This is also going to be one of those who has the Tesla partnership. So the MSRP for this vehicle can range anywhere from about $39,000 to about $61,000. And the electric range, depending upon the trim that you choose, can be anywhere from 250 miles to 360 miles, and has options for either front wheel drive or all wheel drive. And then as far as charging goes, you can get 0 to 100% in 18 hours, which is kind of a long time. And then for DC fast charging, you can do 10 to 80% in 34 minutes at a 250 kilowatt charger. If this is something that you really want to do, I would just honestly take a peek at one of your charging apps that you have, like to see if there are any 250 kilowatt chargers in the area if you want to see how fast this car can charge in real life. And these are available now. So get yourself a Fisker Ocean and then tell me about it because I want to see one in real life. Um, and then we also have the Mini Countryman EV. I know it doesn't look like an SUV, but that's what they're calling it. So we're going to go with it. And this car is about $45,000 with an electric range of 245 miles, which is really big for the minis. We're excited to see that amount of range. Um, this also has all-wheel drive, and for charging, we weren't able to get a lot of information on it because unfortunately, sometimes it's really hard to figure out when you're going through these manufacturers' websites, things that you want to know when you're, considering an EV. So we only found that the top speed that it can charge at is 130 kilowatts. What that means for how many miles it can get in a certain amount of time, I don't know because I don't know the math for that. So just know that that is what can happen. You can pre-order this now, and it's set to be released in the fall of 2024. So go check that out. Um, the Honda Prologue. So a lot of times I get a question about EVs being like 3 rows, and I believe the Honda Prologue has 3 rows. So it's like one of those bigger SUVs with a lot of seating. So it's perfect if you have like a lot of kiddos or you want to do a lot of road trips or camping and you camp inside your car, that sort of thing. This also will have the Tesla charging partnership associated with it. So that'll make it really great if you want to go on road trips in this bigger vehicle. It starts just under $49,000, but it will range. We just don't know quite what the range will be in prices yet. And then the electric range is anywhere from 273 to 296 miles, which is really great, especially for a bigger vehicle. It comes with front wheel drive and all wheel drive. It charges at the max for level 2 at 11.5 kilowatts, and for DC fast charging, you can get 20 to 80% in 35 minutes at a 155 kilowatt station. And so this is set to be on sale in March of 2024. I'm super excited about this because this is Honda's like first all electric vehicle that they're offering, and they haven't even offered any type of electric vehicle since the Honda Clarity, which was, um, you know, they took the Honda Clarity out of most states but California a while ago because it wasn't selling well. So I'm excited to see what this brings. And then Mazda, you don't really hear a lot about Mazdas in the EV world, but this is one of the first ones we've heard about. So Mazda CX-90 plug-in hybrid. This starts at about $50,000. It has an electric range because it's a plug-in hybrid of 26 miles and a gas range of 464 miles. So that's enough to just do your daily errands and maybe even your daily commute on the electric range. This does come in all-wheel drive. And as far as charging goes, um, level 1 you can do in about 11 hours to a full charge. And for level 2, it'll take 2.5 hours at 11 kilowatts. Now, you might ask yourself, why are we talking about level 1 and not level 3 or DC fast charging here like we usually do? Well, generally the rule of thumb for plug-in hybrids is that you can't fast charge. They're not built to fast charge because the idea is that you're using that gas backup. The Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid is the only one that I know of that fast charges, and it's very strange to me that it does. So just keep that in mind, when you're thinking about buying a plug-in hybrid. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just that they can't fast charge. And these cars are available now, so go scoop one up if you're a Mazda fan. And then we have the Hyundai Ioniq 7. We don't know a ton about this one yet. We generalities to share with you. So this again will be a Tesla partnership car. Um, the MSRP is slated to be anywhere from 50 to 60,000. We don't know all the details yet. The electric range is also estimated to be about 300 miles, and it's offered in both rear wheel and all-wheel drive. For DC fast charging, we've learned that it's estimated, still estimated, 10 to 80% of charge in 20 minutes at a 350 kilowatt station. But again, the 350 kilowatt stations are rare to find. So keep in mind that you won't necessarily charge at that rate every time you go to a DC fast charging station. And then this is supposed to be available late 2024. But I'm always skeptical when dealers say give any deadlines. So it could be, it could not be. And then we have the Buick Electra E5. Again, this will come standard with the NAC support, the 2025 models. This is estimated for an MSRP of $50,000 to $70,000, which I know is a big gap, but it also trim levels can really vary sometimes. Also estimated to have an electric range of 300 miles, which is generally what the range for new EVs is trending towards, 300 miles. The drivetrain is all-wheel drive. For charging, it's 10 to 90% in 86 minutes. So that's we're excited about that. And then for the release date, it's supposed to be on sale late 2024. Kia EV9, I think they're just building on their EV6 brand. So I think all their models are going to be EV and then a number. They also are part of the NACS partnership. So this car starts at about $55,000. It goes from 270 to 304 miles of range, depending on the trim. It has the ability to do rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. At level 2, it can charge 6 hours and 45 minutes at using 11 kilowatt charger. And for DC fast charging, it is 10 to 80% in 24 minutes at 350 kilowatts. Now, technically, this car is available now, but I haven't seen very many of them. So I think it is a very slow rollout, and there might be issues with getting production volumes up. Now we're going to talk about the Chevy Blazer EV. So this car is available we'll have the partnership. It is currently on a stop sale because of some software issues. And like I said earlier, Chevy has had some issues with getting their EVs out and produced the last couple of years. So I'm not really sure when that stop sale is going to lift because the CEO of GM doesn't know either, or didn't say when I looked it up. Generally speaking, this car will cost you anywhere between $56,000 to $60,000. Depending on the trim level, it's 279 miles to 324 miles. For drivetrain, it's rear wheel drive and all-wheel drive. And as far as charging goes, you can get 24 miles of range per hour at 11.5 kilowatts. And for DC fast charging, it's 78 miles of range in 10 minutes using a 190 kilowatt charging station. Now, even if the software stop sale thing is lifted, right? I don't expect that you will see many of these on dealer lots for a while. What's going to happen is you're going to have to pre-order these cars, and then the car will be delivered to the dealership and you'll be able to get it. And if you look at dealership websites and it says that they have these cars or they're in transit, most likely they've already been pre-ordered by somebody and they're just waiting to hand it off. So keep that in mind. You might also be able to get on different dealership waiting lists. So they'll call you if a car comes in and the person who pre-ordered it doesn't want it anymore. And that is a way I've heard a lot of people get cars, but just know that don't get your hopes up if you see a bunch on the dealer lots or see a bunch on their website because it's most likely they're already spoken for. And then we just want to do a little honorable mention for the Cadillac Lyric because I just haven't seen very many of them around, but they've been around for about a year. Another car that's going to have the NACS partnership. These can vary anywhere from about $58,000 to $63,000. And the all-wheel drive version of this car has a 307-mile range, and the rear-wheel drive has a 314 miles of range. And again, can have either drivetrain. As far as charging, you can get 52 miles of range per hour at a 19.2 kilowatt charger, and that is kind of rare. The standard is usually around 11 kilowatts. So if you get one, you should get one of those level 2 chargers installed at your house. And then for DC fast charging, you can get 76 miles of range in 10 minutes at 190 kilowatts. And these are available now. But before we move on, I just want to note, because we've talked about DC fast charging a lot, and one thing I didn't mention is that you don't want a DC fast charge all the time. Like it will put some wear and tear on your battery, which will then impact your range. This is something you use as it's needed, and like for road trips and things like that. But generally speaking, you want to do most of your charging at level 2. Okay, now we also have the Polestar 4, and these are a lot of like estimated things. So it's estimated to be about $60,000, and it's going to have a range of anywhere between 350 to 370 miles, which is honestly just fantastic. It will be capable of rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. And as far as charging goes, for level 2, it would be 0 to 100% in 5 hours at 22 kilowatts. And for DC fast charging, you can get 10 to 80% in 28 minutes at a 200 kilowatt station, which is really great. And then this will be on sale late 2024. And Polestar, I think, has like a pretty good track record of releasing their cars and actually having inventory. So you'll be able to get it in a matter of like weeks instead of months. So fingers crossed that will be the same when the Polestar 4 gets released. Okay, so the Jeep Recon is going to stay on the J1772 port when it comes out. Just so that's what that port means at the top right-hand corner. The MSRP is estimated for this one at $60,000, and the electric range is estimated again at 373 miles. It will be all-wheel drive because it's a Jeep. As far as the charging, we don't know much about that yet, so stay tuned. And this is slated to be released later this year, but we had to include it because we know Jeep people love Jeeps, and you have to see a Jeep. So here's your Jeep. Okay, then we have the Acura ZDX. So that's going to be able to use a Tesla charging network. So roughly that starts at $64,000. Has an has an electric range of 325 miles, and the drivetrain is both rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. And charging at DC fast charging is 81 miles of charge in 10 minutes, and you can pre-order this now. Deliveries will be sometime mid this year. Okay, the Volvo EX90, the MSRP, sorry, I'm noticing the time, so I'm going to go a little bit faster. The MSRP is about $76,000 with an electric range of up to 300 miles, a drivetrain with all-wheel drive. As far as charging goes, for DC fast charge, you can get 10 to 80% in 30 minutes, which is great, and you can pre-order this now. The Porsche Macan EV starts around just under $79,000. Gets an electric range of 381 miles, has a drivetrain of rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive, and then charging for DC fast charging is 10 to 80% in 21 minutes, and then it's released mid this year. Another Jeep, because we had to do it. And then this one is also using the J1772 port. So in the J1772 combo, so not on the next partnership just yet. This is going to be like estimated between $80,000 to $100,000 when it comes out. The range is also estimated about 400 miles, which is honestly just crazy. That's really exciting. The drivetrain is all-wheel drive, It's going to get over 600 horsepower. So if you're excited about going fast, this is a good car for you. Um, we don't know much about the charging, unfortunately, just quite yet. But we will hopefully by the next time we do this presentation. And as far as the battery goes, we have a 125 kilowatt motor in the front and a 330 kilowatt motor in the back, which is very powerful. And then the release date will be later this year. Another Polestar, because Polestar is exciting. They are doing the next partnership, and so this car is going to be about $100,000 to about $107,000 with an electric range of 270 to 300 miles. The drivetrain is all-wheel drive. As far as charging goes, level 2, 0 to 100% in 11 hours, which is kind of a long time. And then for DC fast charging, it's 10 to 80% in 30 minutes. And this will be on sale mid this year. So big year for Polestar. Okay, Ezra.
All right. Before I start the trucks and more section, which is smaller, and I'll be quick, I did want to answer a question that we got in the chat about why there aren't more check marks. The biggest reason is that most of these cars aren't out yet, so they haven't really gone into production. So there's a lot of requirements about both the battery components and the minerals in the battery and the final assembly location in the United States. So until all of that has been confirmed, once the car is in production, the EPA will not confirm whether or not the car is eligible for the tax incentive. Another reason that the Lyric and the Blazer and the Equinox did not have that check mark, because last year they were eligible, but the battery component and mineral component percentage within the battery increases every year. And when it increased in January, those cars no longer met the threshold, so they're no longer eligible. So I just wanted to quickly say that. Now we'll go through oh, sorry.
I just want to say it is very complicated, and we'll send you some information in the follow-up email that explains that because it is a needless complicated thing.
Yeah, I will include the link to our article about the battery requirements. And now we will look at, so this is the more section of the trucks and more. This is the Volkswagen ID Buzz. This is like such a throwback to the hippie era of vans. And it's also exciting because it's going to be 3 rows. They partnered with NACS and pretty affordable 40,000 estimated price. It's going to get 258 miles and it's both rear and all-wheel drive. Level 2 charging 100% in 8 hours, 15 minutes, and DC fast charging 10 to 80% in 27 minutes. This car will also have bidirectional charging capabilities. So that means the car can act as a battery and then can charge other things such as a house. And this will be available in June 2024. We have another Fisker, so the Fisker Alaska. This truck is going to be on the NACS platform once it goes into production, and it's going to cost about $45,000. It has a range between 230 and 340 miles, and it's all-wheel drive. The charging is currently unknown, but the battery offers, but depending on the trim, 75 or 113 kilowatt hours. And this is currently on pre-order, so you can sign up for it. Another truck, the Toyota Tacoma. This is also pretty affordable at 45,000 and will have a NACS port. It's going to have an electric range estimated 300 miles and will have 4-wheel and all-wheel drive. The charging speed is currently unknown. Toyota hasn't even created a website yet for this product, so it's pretty late release date of either the end of this year or 2025, but we're still waiting on official information from Toyota about the Tacoma. Wouldn't be complete, this section on trucks, without talking about the Tesla Cybertruck. Of course, it has a Tesla port. The MSRP is 57 to almost 100,000. With a range between 250 and 340 miles. Very interestingly, the drivetrain offers a rear wheel drive and an all-wheel drive. I don't know how functional that will be for a truck, but I don't know if people are really using these for their full truck purposes, but they do have an amazing tow capacity of 11,000 pounds. The charging for level 2 is a full charge in a very slow 21 hours, and the DC fast charging very quick, 128 miles in 15 minutes. And this car is pre-order now, and I have seen some people already get them and been driving them, so it will be available. Another truck, the Ram 1500 REV. This will not run this will not have a NACS port. Again, Ram is part of Stellantis, so it will have a J1772. The MSRP is an estimated 58,000. And the electric range, the standard option will be 350 miles, and Ram is claiming that there will be a 500-mile extender option, so that's pretty incredible. Like most trucks, this will have both four-wheel and all-wheel drive. The DC fast charging is capable of 110 miles in 10 minutes. And just like the Volkswagen ID Buzz, this will also have bidirectional charging available. And this is on pre-order now, so it is supposed to be released sometime in 2024, closer to the end of the year. This is another truck, the Chevy Silverado EV, and GM has partnered with NACS. This is pretty expensive with an MSRP of 74,000 all the way up to over $106,000 with a very good electric range of 400 to 450 miles. And again, this car has four-wheel and all-wheel drive. The charging speed for level 2, 0 to 100% between 8 to 10 hours, and DC fast charging 100 miles of range in 10 minutes. And this car is also pre-ordered now. We have the link here. And this is the last car in our presentation, the GMC Sierra EV Denali Edition 1. It's a mouthful. It's also the most expensive car in the presentation, $108,965, and will have a NACS port. This truck has an electric range estimated of 400 miles and will come with four-wheel and all-wheel drive. It's very similar to the Hummer EV. They're on the same platform. I've seen a few of those around Rhode Island, actually. And a charging speed, we only know for DC fast charging 100 miles in 10 minutes. And the first edition that will be available is this Denali Edition 1 trim. And that'll be in mid 2024. And then eventually in 2025, they do plan to release some cheaper trims. So we have some upcoming events for anyone who is interested. So the first week in March, Tuesday, March 5th at 12 noon, we're going to do an EV 101. That presentation just covers all sorts of information about owning an EV, their benefits, their cost, and then we also talk about the different incentives, both federally in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And then on Wednesday, March 27th at night at 7 p.m., we're going to do a Women and EVs webinar. So we invite different women who are EV ambassadors within our program, and they come and they talk about different aspects of ownership and what it's like to have an EV. And then we open it to the public, and people are able to ask questions, and it's like very much an open dialogue and a lot of conversation back and forth. And then lastly, we are a nonprofit. So we run a lot on donations and the money that people give. So if you are interested and if you support our mission and want to help us continue doing the different program work we do, as well as the different advocacy work that we do in both Massachusetts and Rhode Island, we would love if you made even just a small donation, and we have the website here. And I just wanted to look at the questions quickly.
So while Ezra's looking at the questions, another thing I would like to mention, and Ezra, if you could just include this in your follow-up email, is we have different ways to be involved in our program. So if you already own an EV or end up buying an EV, you can become an EV ambassador and join us at events either in person or online to be an expert and offer, some of your guidance to someone who's new to the EV space. And if you want to ask questions of peers or just have more of a conversation about different cars or whatever it might be, we have a Facebook group called the Drive Green Community Group that we would definitely encourage you to join. And then I see one question about no Rivian or Canoe. So Rivians have been out for some time now, so we didn't mention any Rivians. They only have the R1S in the R1T, which we have mentioned in previous iterations of this conversation. Canoe, I don't know of any vehicles that they're actually doing for like personal vehicles right now, though there might be in the future. Again, this is not an exhaustive list of all the cars that are out there. This is just some of the cars that we have our eye on. And as you can see, it's already taken us an hour to talk about all this stuff.
Yeah. Also, Rivian is coming out with a new, like the R2S, but that's not until 2026. And we try to keep to cars that were coming out within this year or the next year, not 2 years from now. So just wanted to add that. And Canoo hasn't created any car yet that actually has gone on for sale. So we try to stick with manufacturers that have produced a car in the past as well.
Okay, so this question for Nicholas, I don't know if I'm going to be able to fully answer it, but I'm going to give it a shot. So do you guys know anything about how the software for non-Tesla cars might work for trip planning? I drove a Tesla for a bit and it's super easy. You put in your destination and it automatically puts in charging stops based on what it knows about the car. Will the non-Tesla cars do the same and incorporate superchargers in the calculation? So each like manufacturer has their own version of like what Tesla has, and I think it's to varying degrees of effectiveness, to be honest with you. Um, I know that a lot of non-Tesla drivers, especially when you're planning a trip, use a better route planner because it includes things like Tesla charging stations or any charging stations, and it includes like things that knows about your car, so like the general range of it, what whether it's driving in, and it can also include things like if you packed your car with a lot of heavy stuff, and how that will impact your range. So I don't know about all the individual manufacturers like interfaces in their cars, but I do know that many non-Tesla drivers and even some Tesla drivers use a better route planner, which I'm sure will have Tesla charging stations in there as well. Okay, so it is 8:02. I just want to say thank you again to everybody who came and asked these really great questions. We really appreciate it. And look out for that email that Ezra will send around later. And if you have any questions, please feel free to follow up with us. But other than that, I hope everyone has a really great night.